folks, and welcome to the Anti-Heroes podcast with your host, Zach Blair. I am Zach Blair. I just got back from Europe. I did a festival run with the Rise Against band and then had a lovely little vacay with the wife who visited me over there, and we stayed and we did stuff, and it was great. I'm going to jump right into this episode today, folks. Today, my guest, I never thought I would talk to this person. A little backstory. My dad was a radio DJ in North Texas. My dad had a great music taste, and I am so thankful for that. One of the bands my dad loved was Oingo Boingo. One of the perks of being a radio DJ, it definitely was not money because we were broke constantly, but he would bring records home. And when he brought home the 10-inch of Ain't This the Life, the Ain't This the Life single, and also rented the Music War, which, if you don't know what this is, you really should do yourself a favor and check this out. It's on YouTube. But basically, the band The Police, went around filming the bands they liked at the time. So it came out in about 1980. The Police were the biggest band in the world at that point. And there is an Oingo Boingo performance, but there's so many great performances. Every performance on it is amazing. There's bands you've never heard of that I'd never heard of. There's obscure punk rock bands, new wave bands. It's all stripes, but man, Wall of Voodoo, Dead Kennedys are on it. Gary Newman, Klaus Nomi, Devo. It's amazing. It looks like there was maybe like 4 or 5 shows all over the world, and they sort of filmed a song from each band and put that out. But the Oingo Boingo performance, they do the song Ain't This the Life. It's astounding. It's mind-blowing. I remember seeing it when I was a kid and seeing the guitar player, which is my guest today, Steve Bartek. And he had this gold top Les Paul Deluxe, and they're playing the song faster than it is on the record, which is amazing because it still sounds unbelievable. The guitar line in the chorus is just interweaving crazy melody. And I was just obsessed. I'd never seen anything like it. I didn't know what it was. And of course, Oingo Boingo went on to achieve greater success with like Dead Man's Party and Weird Science and, other songs. But I just left a discernible mark on me. And I always loved this band because my dad loved them. And we had this sort of bond. But Danny Elfman went on to score Tim Burton movies and The Simpsons and everything in the world. And as you will hear on this episode today, that Steve Bartek, he was sort of the arranger and the conductor for Danny Elfman. And he always has been. And he up until the new Tim Burton movie, Beetlejuice, which I'm going to see tonight. And I'm very excited about that. But man, we get into all of this stuff. I get to ask him so many questions. And again, like all the true greats, he's humble. He doesn't take the compliments very well. He does it for the love of music, and it's just a masterclass in how to be the real guy, how to be one of the greats, which I believe he is. So I'm going to shut up and let you hear my conversation with Steve Bartek. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Zach.
Hi. I need to thank Conan Neutron at the beginning because he put us in touch. You were have always been sort of a dream guest, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
No, my pleasure. It's nice to be considered a guitar player. So
you are an astounding guitar player. To be able to play the body of work that Oingo Boingo, I mean, there's no definitive type of music that Oingo Boingo is. So you've had to play jazz and punk and country and polka and, just kind of the whole gamut. It's pretty amazing.
I consider that determination thank you for saying it that way, because the thing about Oingo Boingo was that I enjoyed playing all kinds of stuff. We're open to interpreting whatever Danny's songs were in different ways. So it's nice that was communicated.
Yeah, well, like I was saying before, but I started this with off camera or off video recording with a dumb nerd question, but I am a huge fan. And like I said, my father was a radio DJ in North Texas, and he liked different music. He liked everything that you wouldn't expect a guy like from North Texas to be into. And Oingo Boingo, he just loved, and he turned us on to the the Music War
It's funny
show.
that movie has. I've had people come up besides you that's their introduction to us. So it actually was
Right.
kind of a big deal at the time. It was like, oh, why would this is weird,
Yeah. Well, and I think, it was kind of my introduction to you too. My dad just wanted to show us, and like I said, he brought us the Ain't This the Life 10-inch, the single, and it was on a 10-inch, and it just, it changed my life, because I didn't know music like that was. I just figured that something like stuff in California must have been so elevated and cool, and I was not getting that in Texas.
The nice thing about what you're saying about Boingo is kind of I've been doing a project with this guy Ira. We called it Bearing All, and we just put out an album called There Goes My Compass.
Amazing.
It's the same kind of thing where everybody's about branding these days. It seems that every act kind of like has to sound like that act. And their songs then have the same kind of structure, or the same kind of sound, or the same guitar sound, the same guitar. And with this Bearing All thing, we tried to not even think about that. We started out just doing songs together. He's a great guitar player. He played all the slide guitar stuff in Midnight Run. The movie.
Oh, wow.
The slide guitar is the most important part of the movie, and he's a brilliant slide player.
Right.
So over like 8 years, we started doing a song every couple months or every few months, and then finally just pushed to put this thing out. But none of the songs, they're all by us, and they all have our temperament, but none of the songs fit together as a brand. So it's one's a big horn song, and others, they're all just different. So what you're saying about Boingo suddenly clicks that, well, it's kind of where my heart is anyway.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone would expect that from you. I don't think anyone would expect a sort of cohesive, like, no. I mean that in the best possible way. I'm so sorry if that came off.
I'm kidding.
I'm also not good at explaining myself, but I feel like if somebody knows Steve Bartek or your work, they would expect you to be musically diverse. They would expect you to take risks, and they would expect you to, reinvent yourself and to push yourself. I feel like, stagnation in music, and it comes from a guy that I make a living playing music that's a very discernible sound. There's a band that I'm in, and that you know what that band's going to sound like. But I've always admired and in my own sort of ventures tried to push myself, to try to expand my, so I mean that in the best possible way. I'm so sorry if that sounded okay.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I play with the Strawberry Alarm Clock, who
absolutely.
Ago, and they're a different discernible sound. And when we play, we keep it to that. I play electric guitar. I play 12-string guitar, and I play with a band it's Oingo Boingo without Danny. There's like 5 of us in the band. And we do the records, and that's really fun because it gets to push that music that I thought was important to me, and I thought turns out that it was important to other people. So it feels good to play that for people. But I got this project with Ira, and I play with Ira in a band that we do like clubs around town with John Avila from Oingo Boingo. It's called Jackie O, and we've written songs together. We have a whole little thing of songs, but we interpret oldies and songs that everybody likes and enjoys. And so it's the outlet to interact with other musicians in a free, open way. Even though we're doing these songs, is that they go wherever we feel like at the moment, as opposed to Strawberry Alarm Clock and Oingo Boingo. They're structured songs. When you perform them, they are what they are. There's little openings for what a solo is, but they are what they are. When I'm playing with Jackie O, it could go anywhere at any moment, and that's
amazing.
The complete joy. After I spent about 12-15 years not playing guitar at all. I was an orchestrator for Danny Elfman. And when I started playing guitar again, I realized that the whole joy of music is interacting with another musician.
Absolutely.
The mental whatever, even playing, songs that are written or by rote or, written music. That's how you play it with someone else that matters the most to me.
Right. That's absolutely true. I want to talk about all of that, your scoring and your composing as well. Real quick, Strawberry Alarm Clock was Incense and Peppermints, right?
Yes, Incense Preference was
Okay, that's right.
their one big hit.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Again, my dad being a radio DJ in the 60s and 70s and 80s,
I wasn't on that song. What happened was that it was a local Valley band, and a friend of a friend became their backup drum singer and drummer, and he brought in my next door neighbor who I wrote songs with at the time. So my neighbor and I had like 10 or 15 songs. We went and played some for them, and they took the songs because they needed songs for their album. So as a 14-year-old, I had songs on an album that was on the radio, when I was in junior high school.
That's great.
Why did I start on that? See, I get easily diverted once I start talking. I apologize.
That's great. No, it's I do too. I do too. So the scoring, how did that come about? Like Oingo Boingo had disbanded and because I've been seeing your name on so many movie scores and things like that.
The scoring happened before Oingo Boingo was disbanded. Danny's first film was he did a film with his brother called Forbidden Zone.
Yes, which I've seen. Yes, absolutely.
He scored, and I orchestrated. I was arranged the stuff for it. I got to play slide guitar, which I pale in comparison to Ira, who I work with now. And
it's tough.
Yeah, slide guitar is a whole other thing.
It's a whole other thing.
The first film was Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and the band was still playing. And I'm trying to remember, the band was still playing through quite a few of the films until '95. Danny decided it was, he made a choice. And I did a couple films before that too. So it wasn't like Danny and I weren't doing films while the band was around. After the band broke up officially, Danny went full force on it, and so we did much more. But I myself, I only did a few, and I realized that I don't have the emotional and temperament to deal with producers and directors telling you that what you did is good or bad, or you need to change it this many ways to make it happen. So I'm much more comfortable as a facilitator to making someone else's music actually work. So that that was my journey.
So would you score for the instruments? Was it the ideas would get handed down to you and you would basically put that on paper?
Yeah. With Pee-wee, Danny did mostly give me a piano and he'd tell me what he wanted. He would sketch out what he wanted, trumpets to do this or strings to do something. And I would interpret it and put it together on page. Very shortly after that, he started putting it into computer sequencers started appearing. This is when the DX7 was we had to import a DX7 from Japan because it wasn't available here yet. It was that far back. I mean, that's what was happening there. Slowly, Danny got a click box that locked to SMPTE. SMPTE used to be the only way you could, lock anything to a film. And he quickly, figured out sequencers. And we started with a PC, but we moved to a Mac because the programs were easier to understand and easier to manipulate, and ended up with a program called Digital Performer that still has, and he still works in it. And one of the biggest reasons is that it allows you to have more than one version in the one file. If you open a file of Logic or Pro Tools, you get one piece of music. If you open a file of DP, you can have a dozen different versions of that same piece of music and play it for a director and say, do you like this one? Do you like this one? Or you can play a whole sequence of a film and play 8 different cues in a row as the film plays. You can't do that. And Pro Tools, you can do that by popping things in, but you can't do that and work on those files at the same time in any other program. Right. So we've kind of stuck with that program, I think, because of that.
You guys have had such a long working relationship and history together. You even still also play with him in like the Hollywood Bowl shows and things like that. How have those come about? Are those real fun to do?
The first one we did was Coachella, and it made me cry. I mean, it was
amazing.
It was a history of all the work I've done with Danny, and he's been really good to me all along. he could have hired any Hollywood happening orchestrator. He could have whoever he want, and he stuck with me. And
Yeah.
so I feel really grateful and lucky. You know, I've been very lucky. And the fact that when he started to do the shows, that he recorded an album over the pandemic, and he purposely didn't want it to be Oingo Boingo. And by
Sure.
introducing me in there, it like would be it like a little too close to being. So I understood why I was not playing guitar, and the style of what he was doing is like out of my purview. I mean, I'm not the kind of guitar player Robin or Neely are, and they're just amazing guitar players, and so
Yeah.
I didn't feel, I felt fine. You know, it's like that's his choice and it's great. But the fact that he asked me to conduct, so I'm conducting the orchestra on this show, it was kind of thrilling because I had to reorchestrate new arrangements so that we could be playing them live. But it's just a joy to be playing the history of what I've done with my life. It's kind of,
Well, yeah. I mean, it's your legacy as well.
yeah.
You know,
So
I know that it's Mr. Elfman's music, but I mean, geez, you know, I am in a band with a guy that writes predominantly most of all the stuff as well. But you still, it's your playing.
yeah.
You
Well,
know, I mean, it took a specific type of person to be able to play. Well, like we just said, "Ain't This the Life?" The chorus melody on that song alone is just a fucking math problem. You know.
these shows, he brings me out to play on one song. I usually just do Dead Man's Party. The other guys are playing new interpretations of those songs, and they're quite different and kind of wonderful. He's got choirs going, and it's fun stuff. And I'm not really a conductor. I conducted a few little film things. That's not my forte. Or so to be asked to be conducting this material, I felt honored and thrilled. He could have gotten John Machari or any other great conductor.
Yeah.
He chose to have me along with him. So our relationship is not. Our relationship's great. I mean, once again, I feel lucky. Over the years, I've been lucky enough to usually work with people who are much smarter and much more talented than me. And I feel that everyone I've worked with, I've learned something and tried to contribute and facilitate what they want to do. I just, at the beginning of this year, I did a film with John Bryan, and
Amazing.
He kind of, have you talked with him?
No, I have not. I would love to.
You really should.
I would love to.
I learned so much every time I get to work with him.
Yeah. What a wizard.
He has a great ear for. We went to Paris, and the room in Paris, we were long story, but the machinations were we had to go to Paris. It was a French film, and we couldn't book it anywhere else. And we were all scared about the room and speaking English. So we had a conductor who spoke English rather. Sometimes John and I would take turns conducting the orchestra on some of his projects, because it was not, his stuff is not difficult in the way that hitting an action film is. His stuff is much more melodic and that kind of stuff. So this one, we had a different conductor, and his English seemed really good, but our English about what our musical terminology, at least terminology I use, is not always the same in another country where they're trying to translate what you're saying to. So we had a few months, but John sat in the room and he go, "Oh, this room sounds," and he found the place where he wanted the microphones, the room microphones.
Right.
Walked around this. It was a live concert hall. So that was even made it feel like, oh, this is going to be awful. But the concert hall was designed for good sound, and the sound was very even everywhere. I played a concert hall in Tenerife, playing guitar for Bear McCreary, doing Battlestar Galactica live kind of stuff with an orchestra. But
what?
It was at this
amazing.
It was at this weird cement building that sounded like a cement building. You walk in, and there's all these echoes while you're walking down the hallways. I just didn't think about the sound. And in the room itself, there's only one place, right, even with the stage, where the sound sounded even. You go up, it's like really tinny. You go down, it's really bassy. It was just all wrong. There's no room for the orchestra to put their instruments. It just was not designed for an orchestra, even though that's what it was. So this room in Paris, I digress. This room in Paris was really nicely designed, ended up sounding great. But
Amazing.
the whole point of this is that John Bryan could discern that really quickly and knew what to do with the room. In addition to what he does harmonically and melodically,
Right.
I always learn stuff about that from him.
There's those guys that are just wizards,
Yeah.
and in my opinion, I believe you are as well, Sarah. It's funny with this podcast, I meet folks as yourself, and the best ones are always the ones that are most humble. And it's a lesson for me, a lesson in humility that, you don't take compliments, and you don't, I've already realized that about you. Um, but it's, let me brag about you if you don't, if you don't take the brag yourself. I mean, I think Danny Elfman has stuck with you because you are you, and what you've brought to his music over. I mean, geez, what you've been in Oingo Boingo since '74 or something. I
Yeah.
mean, we all know how hard it is to be in a band, and to make a relationship work with somebody. Period. And the fact that he has asked you time and time again to do this, I think that says something about who you are.
Thank you.
Just
Yeah.
absolutely.
Boingo was funny because it was like every year it was like, am I going to stay with this? Are we going to? Is this going anywhere? Are we? Because
Right.
we never had a hit. Really, never had a real hit. It was like, so it's now playing with the Oingo Boingo former members is what the band's called. It's kind of revealing how many, like, they're young kids that could never have seen the band, to parents with their kids that come, and that it's so rewarding to know that people cared about that. At the time, it was
Absolutely.
hard to tell. We could only get booked in certain places, and radio didn't play
Sure.
us, and which was part of the reason why Danny kind of gave up. It's like, even though the last album we did, it got played at some college town in uh, Arizona, I think, or New Mexico, but radio didn't play anything. And so it was like, and it cost too much to take the horns on the road. We never made money on the road. We only made money if we did concerts in LA, because we had a big fan base here. They thought we were an international act in Los Angeles, but anywhere else,
Right.
it was like, couldn't get the time of day.
I had that DVD of the last show, the Halloween show.
Yeah.
I had that DVD from in the '90s. A friend of mine Warren Fitzgerald.
Oh yeah, Warren.
Yeah, I've known Warren for 30 years. I've known Warren forever. We come from, I mean, the Vandals and the band I do, Rise Against, we've, definitely come up together. And even my band in the '90s, Hagfish, would, anyway, I've known Warren for a long time. And man, again, what a great guitar player.
What a great guy. I mean, he's
what
really
a great guy.
Quite smart and thoughtful. And
yeah,
he and I worked on this guy, Bear McCreary, is a film composer who, over the pandemic, he put together an orchestra heavy metal band album kind of thing. And
right.
and he had me play a solo, and Warren played the rhythm, and John Avila from Boingo played bass on one of the songs. I think John played it on a couple songs. Warren may have. I just played on the one song. Bear came over to do interviews. And it was just, I hadn't seen Warren for years, and it was just great to see him. He's such a wonderful guy.
Yeah, such a wonderful guy. Such a great guy. Such a
and a good
youthful exuberance.
He's really a good guitar player.
He's a great guitar player.
Reminded how wonderful it was to have him in the band when we had him in the band. He was like the perfect foil, because he was much looser than I was, and he just had this energy that lifted the band when he joined.
So to get nerdy a bit, I only noticed you ever playing that Les Paul, the Gold Top Deluxe with the mini buckers. Was that a choice on your point because you just love that guitar, or just what was the decision behind that?
Well, at the time, I had two guitars previous. One of them was a 345 or 340, not a 335, but the one other weird one. It had a tiny neck, and it had a weird, one little weird tone thing.
Yeah.
So I consider myself a Gibson guy. I bought a Telly for about a year and sold it because it was so awful. It was just it was a bad Telly. And so I found this Les Paul there's two places. One of them is downtown LA, Eagle Music. When I was a kid, most of my guitars are from there, that everybody would go to. It was a pawn shop that had a whole back room filled with guitars. I got an Epiphone Emperor, I got a Gibson 145 3/4 that I still have. Both of
Wow.
those I still have and love playing. And this Les Paul, I think, was from, I can't think of the name. This guy on, oh God, his name. Okay, I'm old. I forgot his name. A store in Hollywood, and it called to me when I bought. I bought it, and I changed the pickups on it regularly. It was they were the small deluxe pickups, the smaller
Yeah,
size
yeah.
pickups, and then Seymour Duncan made some. And there was a couple of other companies I went back. I kept popping it out because I wasn't completely happy all the time because
Yeah.
what musician is. But yeah, no, I loved that guitar for a long time until I forget what film it was, but there was a engineer at a film score. The guy, I can't think of I think of his name now because I'm old.
Okay.
He had ordered two Stratocasters that were
Okay.
from the custom shop, but had been sent somewhere and had gotten returned. So he got getting a deal if he bought two. So he asked if I wanted one. So I said, great, And so I started playing the Stratocaster, and that
Yeah.
kind of like changed everything for me
No
as far as
shit.
my outlet. It's so much lighter. I was like
Yeah.
I was just bent over from the Les Paul. That actually, in between, I take it back. I had a Carvin for a while, and
Okay.
the only reason I had a Carvin was because it was lighter. I'd take it on
You
the
know
road.
what? I think I remember pictures of you with a Carvin. I
Yeah,
think I remember seeing pictures of you with a Carvin.
and that one too. I kept swapping out the pickups because
Yeah.
the thing about the deluxe pickup on the this isn't talking nerd on the
Oh.
Les Paul was that it was lower output. So it was
Yeah.
I'm originally a flute player. That's
Okay.
as a kid. I took flute lessons and switched to guitar. So I've been told that my guitar sound at that point was pretty fluty, and as opposed to guitar-y, I guess. But the deluxe didn't put out a lot of output. So when I got the Carvin, when it was too much, when it was putting out too much output, it gave me not as much control over whatever pedals or stuff I had to me as I was doing it.
Sure.
So I kept swapping out the pickups, and I would play it live all the time, but in the studio I'd be using the Les Paul.
I remember those Carvin pickups. There was like in the 80s, there was the Carvin pickups that had like double the sort of magnets for each string. So it just looked like it was like on each row, it was tons of magnets, so it would be like two for, it's like kind of looked like for a 12 string or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
but it wasn't. I guess it was their idea to like have more output or whatever when they could have just overwound the pickup or whatever they needed to do.
yeah.
But the deluxe is interesting because they had done, or at least I could be wrong, and I'm sure nerds will call me out, but they were originally just P90s. So all those Les Pauls have been punched out for P90s that were not in vogue at the time because Led Zeppelin had happened and Jimmy Page, and so everybody wanted humbuckers. And so they created that mini bucker to fit in a P90 space.
Okay, that
Yeah.
kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I have P90s. Ira, the guy, my writing partner and in the band Bearing All and Jackie O, his brother was Elliot Ingber, who played with Zappa
Okay.
and Beefheart.
Yeah.
And his guitar was a P90 Gibson, the P90
Okay.
model. I forget the number. And at one point, Henry Kaiser was a big fan and contacted Ira he bought this P90 guitar designed by Schaefer.
Oh, right.
It's a P90, basically the same guitar that Elliot had played, and he gave it to Ira to give to his brother, and his brother didn't like it, and he played it for a while. It's like, oh no, this is not like a regular. And so Ira sold it to me cheap, and so I have it now. This is P90. That sounds great. But
that's awesome.
But I'd never thought of the deluxe pickup as a P90, and Ira kept telling me I need a P90.
Yeah. Well, it was to fill a P90 space,
Right.
And that's why some of those have even the dog ears on the side of them that, fit in a P90 space. Yeah. Well, so as far as amps back then, what were you using in Oingo Boingo?
Okay. When I started, I had a little Princeton Reverb. It's kind of silver face, but
silver
black.
face.
It's kind of like the in-between one that I was told was kind of worthwhile. I still have it, and it's what I use for all my dates now. club days.
No shit.
Yeah, I had. Do you know Roy Blankenship?
That name
Roy
is really
Blankenship.
familiar.
He makes custom amps. He makes it. He
Okay.
was an amp boutique manufacturer, but he's the repair guy that Ira and I go to all the time, and he
Okay.
kind of like cleaned it all up and made something kind of special out of it. It has a little more power. I think it's 20 watts as opposed to 12 or 18 watts instead of 12, but it sounds great. And I use a 12-inch extension speaker with it, and I can fill an auditorium just fine.
No shit. Is that the one you recorded with as well? All the Oingo Boingo records?
Not all the Oingo Boingo records. The first record, the producer hated my guitar sound, and so he took me to Studio Instrument Rentals. Yeah, SIR, and
Okay.
we tried every amp that was there, and ended up with a jazz chorus. So
Okay.
the first few years, the first album was a jazz chorus cranked up loud, and the first few tours I used the jazz chorus. I realized how much I hated playing through it. There was something about the feel. What had the
Yeah.
sound. I was sound was fine if things were sounding good to me, but it felt this is going to sound mystic, but it felt awful. The electricity running through my guitar did not feel right.
No, I get that. I get that. I get that as well.
Yeah, so I ended up with an old, and I forget which order it is. I ended up with an old Boogie, the Mark
Okay.
IV. What I think it was Mark III or IV, not the really earliest one, but I had one. Actually, it doesn't say Mark at all on it. It just says Boogie, a little 12
Okay.
thing that's heavier than shit,
Yeah, the tweed with the tweed front.
It was a Santana when Santana was using it.
Sure.
And I kind of like loved the sound. And then when we got to Dead Man's Party, we wanted some other choice. So we went to West LA Music, and Danny and I both bought Matchless amps that were they were just starting out then, and we tried them and we liked them. And Fred Wallachy, who runs the store, kind of was pushing them. So I fell in love with the Matchless amp, which was like an AC30, or it's kind of like a
Sure.
And it's kind of funny. John Bryan has exactly the same one. When I met John Bryan, I didn't realize he had the same amp, but we had the same 3/4 guitar. We had the same. I have a little tiny piano that I bought. It's really tiny. It only has one string per note. It's like a practice piano for choirs. So I walked into his little studio, and he had that, and he had that other guitar. Wow. And apparently he had this Matchless amp too. And I didn't realize it, but he told me there's a push-pull pot on it.
Oh, no shit.
It goes into overdrive that I never knew was there. And that's like
great.
20 years. I just never knew. Wow. John Bryan showed it to me.
Well, if no one tells you, sometimes you don't. Why would you think to pull it? You know what I mean?
And the thing is, it probably was accidentally pulled a couple times, and I didn't know. And I couldn't figure out, well, why am my guitar so distorted?
Like, why does it sound different right now? Yeah. That's great. Well, great minds with you and John Bryan having the similar gear. Those Matchless amps, man, they're so sought after now. I mean, nothing like discontinuing something to get people to clamor for it.
Well, I think he's still making them, but they're not quite the same. Because he repaired one of the guys. I forget his name, so he'll kill me. But he was really good about putting mine back in shape because it sat here for those 15 years I didn't really play. And he put it back together, and I've been using it. The trouble with both the Boogie and the Matchless, they're just too heavy for an old guy to carry into a gig. So
they are heavy.
The Princeton, perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. I don't play it with my main thing, but when I'm home, those Hot Rod DeVilles, man, those Fender Hot Rod DeVille combos, but also heavy as hell. But man, they kind of have Marshall properties to them. It's crazy. Okay. See, combo amps are,
I have a Marshall disaffinity. I on one of these gigs, they had a backline and I had to use a Marshall, and I don't know how to use a Marshall. I don't.
Yeah.
I've been so Fender, Boogie, and Matchless are like completely different animals, and you have to know how to use a Marshall. And I was thrown plugging into a Marshall, and it was awful. I had no idea how to use it. So I have to salute you if you do, because I really admire the people who get good sounds out of them.
I've had two great Marshalls in my entire career. and in the 90s I had one, and then I bought one. I was in the band Guar for a long time, and
Mhm.
then now with Rise Against, and I used the same Marshall head that had gotten hot rodded 2 different times. I just made it work.
Yeah, yeah.
But when I have played other Marshall heads, it's been that same situation where I really have to sit there. I have other Marshall heads that I do not have the same sort of relationship with.
Yeah.
But, there's been times in my life when I've used Mesa Boogie, and there's something that's just been so easy and sort of user friendly about them. I'm like, man, why aren't I using this? You know what I mean? And now we're on the profilers, which are just alien technology, and you can
Right,
do
right.
anything with them. And it's just this little component that has every amp in the world. And if they didn't sound amazing, there would be an argument against them, but they do. They sound so good.
I yeah, I was surprised. John Avila, the bass player from Boingo, his studio,
Yeah.
he had a quilter, a little quilter amp, and he
Okay.
had an old Princeton that was older than mine and more authentic and sounded great. But the two of them, they actually were comparable. The quilter sounded really good, even though it's.
Yeah.
Eh. So I bought this little quilter pedal that's an amp. It's like 25-watt amp. It's the size of like two pedals next to each other, but thin,
Sure.
because the Boingo band is supposed to be going to Brazil. And
Oh,
I,
wow.
I want to be able to carry something that I can rely on just in case, because it'll be a backline. And in case I get something like a Marshall, I want to just say, oh, can you use a speaker? And I'll use this. And
Yeah.
I was surprised about how good it sounds. The one
Wow.
thing, it sounds great, but the one thing, much like the jazz chorus, it doesn't feel like it's responding to dynamics exactly the way I'd like it to.
Oh, gotcha.
It's usable. It works great, but on a really subtle level, it's like, oh, it's not quite the
Hmm.
same.
Do you rely on distortion much at all? I mean, I know the Roland Jazz Chorus, they do clean sparkly very well, but they do not break up. So do you require that, or do you add that with a pedal?
I add that with the pedal these days.
Gotcha.
For a while I had groove tubes,
Sure.
the preamp had three settings: clean, medium, and distorted. And
Yeah.
I
Lead.
used to
Yeah.
use that. And so I that one I would use their distortion. I have
Gotcha.
on pedal board now. I have a Z amp.
Okay.
They
Okay.
have it's like, I'm not real good with the technical thing. One's a germanium,
Uh,
and one of them's the other kind of distortion.
hmm.
So it has the two distortions built in. One of them's cleaner; it just gets just a touch of fuzz
Yeah.
for, and the other one is deeper. And I use that. And
With the tech stuff, I'm sorry to interrupt, but with the tech stuff, I choose to be kind of in the middle of the road with it, even though I have a podcast where I talk about guitars and shit. I feel like knowing all there is to know about it, it just cancels out the whole creative side of it.
thank you. I'm glad that because the only reason I use this is because I tried it and it responded the way I felt I wanted it to, and
Sure.
I stayed with it for you. Actually the smartest thing I did was, the Tone Quest magazine.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So 100 years ago, somehow I was getting Tone Quest, and it talked about the Klon, and so
Okay.
I ordered one. It took over a year for one to get to me back then. And the minute I put it in, it was the difference between hearing it coming out of my amplifier and hearing it around me. It's like there's
Yeah.
something about the way it distorts it does something to the upper harmonics, much like an Aphex oral exciter.
Yeah. Sure.
It made what sounded small this way to feel bigger. So I had to use, from the moment I got it, it was on my pedal board forever until this past year, when
Whoa.
realizing how much they're worth right now. I found
Yeah.
Ira and I went and found a clone that was really, really close, so that when I do gigs, I take it and I leave my other one here at the studio.
Yeah. The clones are amazing. I have a bunch of the clones. I have the Centura, which it looks just like a
Right,
clone,
right. I've seen them.
and the Seriatone or whatever is Centura. The Archer is really great. There's so many great ones. The Wampler have one.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, you're right about that. They really, but again, in the goddamn, and every one of the amp profilers from Kemper to Quad Cortex they have a Klon in there, and it
yeah,
sounds amazing.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
It sounds
haven't.
great.
I have a slight not fear, but and not distaste. It's not quite that. I can't find the right word.
Hmm.
I conducted for who's Jacob Dylan's band,
Mm. The Wallflowers.
the Wallflowers. I conducted they did it. I think it was for Grammy show. Their band played with a small orchestra doing David Bowie song Heroes. I think that I did a quick arrangement for them that I conducted, but their guitar player
Sure.
had it was a line 6. He had a line 6 amplifier. During the
Yeah.
rehearsal, it sounded great. It was just like he was going through the sounds and he was testing it out and doing all kinds of stuff. But when it came to the concert, his guitar disappeared
No shit.
because and my conclusion, which is based on impression, is it's sampled stuff. It's all digital. It's not
Right.
a tube. It's not the waveform is not going like this. It's going like this, and so it's missing information. So that missing information on his waveforms made it so that the other waveforms that were full beat it out, beat it down.
Right.
And it wasn't that he was soft. He was loud, but it did not translate out. So that
makes sense.
that makes me a little fearful of playing in a band with things that are digitally produced. Recording, you're recording to digital, so that actually probably works better. I mean, I don't feel that I'm losing anything by becoming digital before it goes to the thing that is already digital. But in the live situation, that one experience made me think, I'm using analog pedals. I'm using,
No. Well, what's weird is maybe I'm a Luddite, but I am now currently using a quad cortex with an analog pedal board in front of me. And all of the pedals, they're just MXR and they're just basic pedals. They're nothing that I had custom made. They're all in the quad cortex, but there's just something about having that actual MXR Phase 90 in front of me.
Yeah.
And maybe and it was sort of, we were looking for the right sort of MIDI switching system that would speak with the quad cortex because they don't actually have their own yet. And I was just like, fuck it, I'm just going to go ahead and stick with these. And so I think I'm the only person I know that does that right now, and I'm still doing it, and it sounds great. But we're at that. You talk about digital. It's like we don't even have cabinets on stage. Everything's in ears. There's no monitors on. It's it's all off. And we went. That was a very quick transition. We had cabs and we had but it's all, and the sound guys and all that stuff. If you hear them talk, they're like, "Oh, it's the greatest thing ever." But the people on stage can't hear anything except drums. They're standing there watching.
We had a couple concerts with the Fix back in the 80s.
Oh wow!
And the Fix it wasn't in ears, but they had no amps on stage, and the drums were pads. And so every one of them had a little monitor that had sound in it. But actually, from backstage, you couldn't hear the band.
You couldn't hear shit.
Yeah. From out front, okay, it sounds great. Big and full, and they could hear each other in the thing, but it wasn't very rock and roll.
Yeah, well, no, it's true. It's true, man. So who is in the Boingo band? Who all is in that from the original band?
Oh, okay, the Boingo former members that's playing now.
Yes.
Me and John Avila are there when we can. Both of us have gigs that if Danny calls me, I'm there instead of here. But me and John Avila, John Hernandez is the band leader, who was the drummer. Carl Graves, who was a keyboard player for After Dead Man's Party for a while there, and Sam Phipps, sax player.
Gotcha.
So the 5 of us.
And who does somebody sing for?
Is Bear McCreary, the composer that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's his younger brother.
Oh, no shit.
Both Bear McCreary and Brendan were big Boingo fans. And Bear sought out John Hernandez when he was at USC studying music. And John Hernandez got me involved in doing some of Bear's school film projects. And the Boingo band, as it is, the former members, only exists because Bear McCreary and Brendan put together a show for Halloween, just a one-off. We did stuff from Nightmare for Christmas. We did all kinds of Boingo related things. We had a string quartet, and John Hernandez took that idea and turned it into a regular thing. Brendan he's a great singer, and he interprets Danny's vocal style in a slightly different way. And
Right.
it took a while for fans to embrace it, but they've started embracing him.
That's
And
great.
he's also notably not younger than most of us, so he's
Right,
much more
right.
energetic on stage. And
Well, yeah, that must be so great to be able to have that outlet to still go and play shows and tour, and because I would imagine what keeps you busiest now is you sound like you're conducting quite a bit at this point.
well, not really. I mean, Danny only we're
Yeah.
doing the show at the Hollywood Bowl in the end of October, beginning of November, November 1st, and we're doing
Okay.
the show in San Francisco, November 2nd. But
Okay.
we haven't done that show since last year. So
What keeps you busiest now?
actually, what does keep me busy? It changed.
Yeah.
Much like we were talking about the diversity of the music I've been lucky enough to be involved with, is that it changes. I mean,
Yeah,
I
for
had the
sure.
movie with John Bryan, and then every second Saturday, Jackie was booked at a club. We played Ireland's 32 in San Fernando Valley,
Wow.
and I just did a rehearsal for Ira's had a friend named Jack Sherman who used to play with, for a short time, played with the Red Hot Chili Peppers,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I know who Jack Sherman is. Yeah.
he's since passed, and his son is an amazing bass
Yeah.
player, and his son is doing an album of tribute to Jack Sherman, and so
Wow.
we had a rehearsal, and it was surprising both Ira and I the kind of music that Jack Sherman wrote. He wrote much more fusion kind of involved,
Right.
7/8 and intellectually fun kind of stuff. So I've been rehearsing with that. I'm
Wow.
trying to think of, I mean, had no Strawberry Alarm Clock this year, but and we did. I mean, with Danny, we did Beetlejuice at the end of summer. So,
That's amazing.
so
Yeah. I'm going to see that tonight, actually, the new one.
yeah. Look for the chicken scene. It's my favorite scene.
Okay.
Look for chickens.
Okay, gotcha. Did you have a hand in scoring the new Beetlejuice with Danny?
Beetlejuice. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's what we did the end of summer. We finished.
Oh, I thought you meant you did you did the original music with him
No.
at like a performance. I didn't realize. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Oh my
no,
God. Okay.
we recorded that. Um, I think it was like September, August, or something like that. No,
No
it was
shit.
earlier than that. It was June or July.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, shit. We're at 50 minutes now. I don't want to take up much of your time. I do want to say thank you. I asked you a totally nerdy question again before we started about the drummer that played on Art of the Music War, and I'm a huge fan, and it's a real honor to meet you. I really appreciate you taking the time
Likewise, it was nice
to
talking to you.
to do
Really
this.
great.
I'm going to think of 1,000 questions that I didn't get to ask you after, but yeah, maybe we'll do a part two.
Happy to if you can find more questions. I'll talk.
Okay.
I'll make my answers shorter.
Okay. No, appreciate it. Go. I usually it's me talking forever. But anyway, thank you so much, Steve.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I really did not mean to say cohesive. I hope he didn't take that the wrong way. I meant a catalog that is not easily defined. A catalog that is musically explorative. That's diverse. I did not mean to say cohesive. But I was nervous. I was talking to the real guy. I was talking to the man. The musicianship of that guy, the level of knowledge and what he's done and where he's been and what he's seen, and it's humbling. It's also it was enough to throw me off and make me nervous talking to him because I did not feel worthy, folks. I did not feel worthy talking to the maestro, Steve Bartek. Again, he's very humble, but you should check out his guitar playing. And I'm actually going to leave you with an amazing example of what we kept talking about, which is the song Ain't This the Life by Oingo Boingo. Listen to the chorus guitar melody. Just listen to it. Just try to play it. How snaky it is, where it goes. Watch your hand while you're doing this. It's like a warm-up exercise. I think that's the best way to put it. It's a warm-up exercise. The guitar line in this chorus. for Ain't This the Life by the astounding, amazing, inimitable Oingo Boingo. Who sounds like Oingo Boingo? Unbelievable. Can't believe I got to talk to the man. I am also going to thank the fine folks over at MXR and Jim Dunlop Pedals. I love them. They're family now. And find out what they're doing over at jimdunlop.com. Also shouts outs to the folks over at DistroKid. They're giving the artists the chance to get their music on the platforms themselves. They're cutting out the middleman. Check out DistroKid. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. I love this podcast. I get to meet guys like this, man. If anything, it's very self-serving because I get to meet my idols. And hopefully that's interesting to you, listening to me meet my idols. But I'm going to keep doing them, folks. And I appreciate you stopping by. We'll talk to you soon.
In a penthouse high, our steaks are rare and our martinis dry. Folks below, they say it ain't fair. Hell with them, I really don't care. Try to be one of me, ain't this the life? Having a party on a big jet plane. I got so drunk that I could feel no pain. Hanging out in Acapulco, drinking rum and sniffing cocoa. Pretty senorita look this way. Dancing through the night, everything's alright. Go for anyway, ain't this the life? Ain't this the life? Ain't this the life? Ain't this the life? Baby, 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 ain't this the life? Oh, ain't this the life? Baby, 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 ain't this the life? Oh, ain't this the life? Baby, 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 ain't this the life? Oh, ain't this the life? Ain't this the life now? Tropical island in the deep blue sea. The natives are friendly and the lobster's free. Sipping cognac like a French king. Plenty of room, I own the whole thing. Try to be mon ami, ain't this the life? I think I'll go out now on a shopping spree. A breakfast in New York, dinner in Paris. Hanging out with Lynn and Susie. Have a massage in a jacuzzi. Climbing the bed and see what's on TV. Dancing through the night, everything's alright. Go for anyway, ain't this the life? Ain't this the life? Toma, ain't this the life? I said, ain't this the life? Baby, 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 ain't this the life? Oh, ain't this the life? Baby, 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 ain't this the life? Oh, ain't this the life? Baby, 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 ain't this the life? Oh, ain't this the life? Is this the life now? Oh, baby, 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 ain't this the life? Toma, ain't this the life? Oh, mama, mama, ain't this the life? Oh, baby, 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 ain't this the life? Toma, ain't this the life? Oh, mama, mama, ain't this the life? Oh, baby, 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 ain't this the life? Toma, ain't this the life? Oh, mama, ain't this the life? Oh, I said, ain't this the life? Oh, I said, ain't this the life? Oh, I said, ain't this the life?